Welcome, everyone, to the Listen Care Fully podcast. I'm so excited to have my friend Kelly Kasle here today. She is a musician, she is a teacher, she is an astrologer, and she works with the age range of 18 to 26-year-olds. And she really wants to deliver like this support and information and all of the things that she has developed in her skill set because she wants to support people in ways that she wishes she had. So, welcome to the show and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy. This is going to be great. We have a lot to discuss.
Oh, there's so much about conscious parenting and there's so much about reparenting self, and we're so here for it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, as we were just starting this chat before, to jump into kind of how I got here and give you and your listeners a little bit of background on myself. I started out my life and my career as a professional classical musician. I went off to music conservatory and I got my undergrad and my master's. And I always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. I wasn't necessarily a kid who had the dream of becoming getting that pro orchestra job. That wasn't my dream, but I loved music. I loved the experiences. It took me all over the world, starting very young. I loved to travel. And then I found out in college that I loved to teach. And so all of these things were wrapped up into this career. And I moved to Los Angeles and had a freelance career for 5 years, teaching, performing, and producing events, which was kind of my more entrepreneur side. But when COVID hit, um, the music industry shut down in LA, and a lot of it still is not back fully yet. My dad died, just a lot of things. And I decided, you know what, it's time for changes, as I'm sure a lot of people who will listen to this in like the next 2 years can also relate. I think a lot of people went through a lot of changes. And so I had to do a lot of healing work and grief work just on myself for the loss of my dad, the loss of my career, and figure out, okay, what is it that I want to do next? And I've always had a really soft spot for this age group of 18 to 25-year-olds because I had to do so much work on myself as I got into my mid 20s. Even though I was a really high performer, I had a lot of health issues that came up that I had to deal with. That I got really into like the biohacking scene, the health hacks, but eventually that led to more of a spiritual awakening and an understanding that underlying all of these issues were stuck emotions and stuff from my childhood. So then I became really fascinated on this journey of what is God and what are we? What's our relationship to the universe? And started finding tools like meditation and shadow work and inner child work. And that's the stuff that I really love doing the most and love helping people with. So that's what I'm doing now in today's world.
Wow, so beautiful and so courageous to, I know we were touching on this a little bit, but so courageous to step outside of the box, right? Like, how can we not have to define ourselves in such ways, but still bring that beautiful, like, attention to our skill set and what we do? And I'm really inspired that music was what first got you so intrigued. And I know for me personally, I love voice. Like, there is something about our vibration and how, even just putting a hand on your heart when you're talking, or even how it comes through on the computer and you can hear this, you can feel the sound vibration.
Yeah.
I feel like voice is one of those things that, we're always saying you have a unique purpose. And I always believe that sometimes purpose isn't always about like what you're doing, but more so like how you're being. And with purpose being that way, it's like I feel like voice is one of those really, really maybe not so obvious, but obvious ways where that's like our unique delivery of what we are like translating out into the world from what we're taking in and from the experiences we've been through. And, I just think
Mhm.
voice, and I don't know like if voice
Mhm.
means a lot to you too, but
Yeah.
voice to me like just feels so potent
Mhm.
and like really magical,
Mhm.
just
Well,
having.
sound frequency in general. And I don't know if you recommend any of your clients to do music therapy or any sort of sound therapy, but my first step actually out of kind of the health biohacking space into the more esoteric alternative space was my senior year of college. I worked with a Reiki master and a sound healer for a year. And we worked with this machine where she would create these programs of different frequencies that would target different places in my body. And this is where, like in yoga, if you study with some of the kind of high master yogis, you work on toning and toning your different chakra energies, and you can feel those different sounds move through your body and resonate. And your voice is very similar to our own fingerprints. We all have our own unique frequency out of our voice. I think it's even very healing to make your own meditation tracks, whether you're humming or whether you walk yourself through a meditation and you listen back to it. There's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think humming too, like especially with children and especially with kids I've seen that are perhaps nonverbal, like humming is communication for sure.
Yeah.
The different tones, the different rates and speeds and how they have like the melody to it, but
Mhm.
have different hums and different like yeah, the sound waves. That's
Mhm.
definitely so big.
Mhm.
And we feel that. I love that you said resonate because it's like it either resonates or it
Yes.
doesn't.
Yes. And this is my whole mission in I loved how you brought up purpose at the beginning of this. And in my journey, I have come to believe, this is my own personal belief, that we are here to remember that we are actually a part of the God force, that we are all really one just big energetic field, but getting to live our own unique expression of it. And I believe that when we are in full alignment with our soul, so you have embodied your mind, your body, and your soul, and those three things are all in harmony,
Mhm.
everything works out in life. And that our purpose is to explore this unique, incredible expression of source that we each came here with and to enjoy it, to get the most out of it. And to me, that is what purpose means. It's much more an experience, having an experience of feeling this embodiment than, I mean, these last 100 years, the powers of at be have used this word purpose to tie it to a career and to money. And that's like a whole other topic subject, but
Yeah.
that's not like at a core human level, that's not really what purpose is about.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And just another way that we can claim our power back, right? Like even just, yeah, like the vibrational field that we carry and just knowing that it's safe to be seen and safe to be heard and it's safe to live our lives to the fullest, right? Because if we think about our lineage or our generational patterning, right? Like I think about the women in my lineage, like they dreamed of the life that I have today. And yet I would probably never go through the things that they did either. So it's like the lineage connects us. And also, we're very, very different, even though like who we are in a sense is those imprinted like ways of evolving one generation at a time.
Mhm.
And I think that is what they want for us. And whenever we get stuck, it's almost like, oh, but like, can I be seen and heard in those ways? If they weren't seen and heard in those ways, like who am I? Or do they really want that for me? Right. And we're really realizing like this is the life, this is the life that we get to step into our power, that we get to be seen in these ways, that we're not taking things for granted, but that we're also moving through maybe all of the ways that we've stayed stuck or that we've played small up until now,
Mhm.
like there's no um waiting anymore.
Yeah.
Like the
Yes.
time is now. It
The
we're
time is
here.
now.
We're here. And it's not to say that there's pressure to make something of yourself or be something or do something, but I know a lot of clients that I work with too, it's like they know that they're here for a really specific reason. And if they don't know what that is yet, or if they don't know what that looks like yet, like they're learning to trust that it's okay to feel really like anxious or weird about the current paradigm or the current system. Because like to me, I'm like, oh, well, that's actually pretty normal that you're feeling like you don't fit in there or that you don't click with that framework anymore, because to me that's a sign that like we're moving into new spaces of creativity and we're moving into new ways that the world is done. If you look back at the ways we used to do things, like there are a few things that are certainly outdated, like our
Mhm.
systems, and they were never designed to support everyone. But
Yeah.
like there are things that we've let go of, and then there are things that are, I think, harder to let go of because of um our really deeply entrenched beliefs and practices. And we're a culture that needs each other to survive. And so when we want and need to belong, it can sometimes be hard to step outside the box, be the leader, and show others the way, even if we don't know what that looks like yet. But we have
Yes.
that deeper trust that, wait a minute, I'm here for a bigger purpose.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know I had to go through the period of being the black sheep, kind of being the different one and feeling very alone. And I
Mm.
work with a lot of people, especially in astrology sessions, who in that side of my work, that's open to anyone. Anyone can come and have a session with me. And I seem to attract a lot of people who are going through their spiritual awakenings.
Mm.
And they're wondering, like, why is all of this stuff happening in my life right now? What's going on? I can't seem to control any of it. It's just happening. Um, and what I tell people is, this is great. This is exactly where you need to be. It's just like when our body naturally gets sick and gets a fever and heats up, that is its system of healing itself. It has to burn out all of the toxins, the viruses, the bad bacteria, and you have to go through a period of discomfort. And it's so funny, as we're sitting here doing this today, you probably are noticing, if anyone is watching this back, I got stung by a bee in the crest of my eye on Sunday. And
Oh
so
my
that's probably
gosh.
why my eye looks all red and puffy. It's starting to come down. And I'm just having to go through it and give it as much love as I can each day to help it through. Um, but when you're going through that period, you have to let go and release all the old. And that is just a process that takes time. And that is one of the reasons that I have chosen this age group, aside from just loving their optimism and their energy, is that I, for the last almost decade now, have taught 11 to 18-year-olds music lessons. And I've been really blessed to work a lot in the private lesson setting, one on one, And I'll even get a kid who at 11 years old is still truly a child. And I'll get to watch them grow into a teenager and a young adult and watch them over all of those years. And I have seen as time has gone on, kids are more and more sensitive. And I think that we're about to, at least this has been prophesized, you can take this or leave it, that there is a new kind of human essentially coming to Earth in a few years here, like 2027. And they are going to be essentially clean human beings. They are going to be very energetically sensitive. They're already going to have innately a lot of the gifts that we are working on developing now. And we need to make sure to have systems in place and support systems for these kids. And I'm already seeing it with the kids I work with. It's just this environment right now we've set up, it's too stimulating for them. It's too much, and they don't have the tools readily available to them. And in their school systems, a lot of parents just don't know about this stuff. They don't understand that they're being overstimulated and they don't have healthy outlets for expressing this energy. What are you seeing?
Thank you so much for naming that, because like, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I feel like exactly with that, like sometimes we create more work for ourselves when we have like all of these problems that, could be preventable or could be tended to differently. Like we tend to use screens as babysitters because as parents, we feel burnt out, or like we don't have the energized like state to give back to our kids. Or, when I see parents with their children and they're on their phones, it's like, how are we at this point where we feel so unattached and so busy that we're missing what's right in front of us, right? This is not to perpetuate any shame or guilt, but it's just wild to me that our priorities, like what we call work, have a bigger precedent over family. And I know that everyone has different values, so it's not to say like everyone needs to prioritize their family, but I believe that if we stop eating sugar and stop doing screens, like, wow, I wonder just how much that could solve,
Yeah.
or
Just,
really
yeah.
just eliminate
Right.
like these created problems that, like you said, we're overstimulated. We don't know, our nervous system wasn't designed to take on that overload or that amount of, yeah, just almost really, I'm thinking of like advertisements and just non-consensual, like you can't even get
Mhm.
gas today without having like an ad come on, It's
Mhm.
just like, what? I didn't ask for that.
Mhm.
And kids are so susceptible to being sponges to the world around them. So their subconscious, as you know, is being primed and they're really taking in the world for the first time. And, it's just, it can really be a lot to on their nervous systems. And what I notice is in the work I do, because I work to help kids expand their emotional tolerance, screens can definitely get in the way. Sugar can definitely get in the way. Those are the top two substances I'll even dare to say, because when we're in those moments of discomfort, if we're feeling sadness, if we're feeling grief wash over us in a transition, we want that comfort. So give me the lollipop, give me the screen.
Mhm.
And even though that provides that immediate hit of dopamine and that immediate comfort, I'm just not so sure if that's the most sustainable way, right? And obviously, like, again, choose your battles. Maybe there's times where you're just feeling at your end, right? But like, I do believe that there are more sustainable ways. And I think
Mhm.
to tie it back into the belonging piece, the fitting in, the like doing what the tribe does, like if you're the only one doing something different, that can feel really isolating and lonely, especially if you
Yes.
know, like, okay, I know I'm doing the right thing, but why is everything around me like not aligning to that? Like, I know I'm like
Mm.
doing the right thing when I like decrease sugar and decrease screens, but it's
Mhm.
like we're not fitting into the world, we're
Yeah.
the odd one out, or we're the one that has to take the brunt of the pushback, or that's what I find with parents most of the time, where like these more sustainable ways that enhance our deeper connection aren't always like convenient, and that's kind of what we're being bred to expect with like our smartphones and our
Yeah.
convenient life.
Well, and it's the instant gratification. And so that's now what I'm seeing with the 18 to 26-year-olds is it is amazing that they now have these tools like TikTok, and they can make money online like instantly. They can go on and create a TikTok account. It can blow up. But
Mhm.
there's no longer an element of sustainability and true natural sustainability. We have already seen that if you are pumping someone up with lots of drugs over time, that's not sustainable. There eventually you're going to peter out. Or if you're doing the job that you're just doing to make lots of money, but you're not also nourishing the relationships at home, okay, then that's when the wife says, I'm done. This isn't the relationship that I signed up for. And with our kids, we're going to have to come back into balance with understanding, and this has been a huge lesson for me, making friends with time, that things take time to build, that we are here to enjoy the journey over time. It's not necessarily about the end result. Yes, you have to have the goal in front of you to go for. It helps you move through life, but you have to enjoy each moment and find things that are going to be a bit more lasting. I mean, what I'm seeing with all the TikTok trends right now, the people that are blowing up, they're the thing of the moment. But is that going to last 5, 10 years? Probably not. No. And they're probably going to go on their own journeys of discovering, who am I? Why do I feel this way? And that's where I think that education is just upside down right now. They're asking young people who don't know themselves yet to choose a path, like right out of the gate. Okay, you come out of primary education, boom, choose your major, choose your path, put down 100 grand towards this path, and let's see what happens. It's backwards. It's I really like in Europe they give younger people a little more space, and 18 and 20-year-olds tend to take a few years to go travel, kind of take some gap years. And what I recommend to this age group now the most is maybe take a gap year. Take some time, go through these exercises to get to know yourself first, work for a year, like work part-time,
Yeah.
and then make some of the bigger decisions and enjoy the ride as you go.
Yeah, and not to mention all of these societal pressures and these expectations that we essentially make up because again, we want to do well. We want to measure success in those ways, and that can come through in a lot of ways, like the perfectionism, or the enoughness. I know that's a big one for me. Like, am I enough?
Mhm.
Meaning like producing and doing things a certain way. Yeah, I'm so curious too about like how our kids, and they're already doing this as we know, but like how our kids are here to teach us and inform us of these newer ways, right? Because in some sense, like they're coming in to this whirlwind,
Mm.
right? They're coming into these not so ideal circumstances, and they have their journey and their path too. And that's going to show them the contrast because we're in a world of duality, right? Like
Mhm.
when I think about where we are headed, because I so agree with you that the journey is so, so valuable. But where do you see us headed? And how do you see? I know it's a collaboration of us leaning into the discomfort now so that we have those skills and tools to really be with change and to really be with, you know, how it is that we're just rapidly changing at this time on the planet.
Mhm.
And also like holding that space to be able to be taught like we're no longer like, we don't know everything. I mean, we never knew
Mhm.
everything, but that was just an illusion of safety, right? Like if I'm in control, then somehow I'm safe. You
Yeah.
know, if I can control
Yeah.
money, I'm safe. If I can control um my outcomes, I'm safe. Like,
Mhm.
all of that programming,
Yeah.
I feel like our kids are here to show us a really different way.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And so this is where I was always very attracted to the esoteric practices from a very young age, and like had
Mhm.
imaginary friends and saw spirits and all of that. But it got tempered for a long time until I had my spiritual awakening and started having these crazy meditation experiences again. And when I was asking the question, who am I and what am I here for? That's when I found astrology and got really into the study of astrology, which is essentially it's the study of ancient hermetic principles. So the understanding of duality and the triad and how our language developed, but it's also the study of archetypes, which I'm sure in your own training you studied as well, reading Carl Jung and Nietzsche and Freud and all of these things. The mythologies, if you just go through and read the mythologies, you can learn a lot about humans and how we are the way we are, why we are. So one of the things I love looking at in astrology is how and when cultural shifts happen over time. And the way I teach people about astrology is the planets have gravitational forces that are always acting on us that we're just not totally aware of until you come in sync with it, but they are always there shaping our lives. It's just like gravity. Until you get to what, 5th or 6th grade and actually study gravity, you don't know it's there, but it's still there. um so the zodiac signs hold the energies, the frequencies of different archetypal personalities.
Mm.
And if we zoom out to the very furthest planet, we have Pluto, which takes 12 years to move through each of the signs. So we can essentially track the decade cultural shifts, the different generational shifts with this planet. Um, we could say, for example, our generation who had Pluto in Scorpio, Scorpio represents like our sexual energy, death, and transformation. So the millennials were really here to come in and make a huge generational shift, right? We've um changed the way that we use our sexual energy and our sexual expression, right? We were the ones that brought in all of the different movements of different sexual orientations. Now, the Generation Z, they are Pluto in Sagittarius, which it's funny, you even see these things pop up in music and in fashion. Like our generation, when we were growing up, we had a lot of emo and kind of this rock and roll, like, right, like the super emotional, passionate, kind of dark energy. It's very Scorpio. Whereas now this next generation with the their sages are like um the old wise men. It represents the teachers, the professors. It also has a very happy kind of golden retriever energy, I like to say. But look at the fashion right now has come back to this very baggy clothes, the oversized stuff, kind of like the old man look. And it's funny to see this stuff come up. They are going to be here to shift our belief systems. Sagittarius is taking all the facts and information and putting it into these broader scale belief systems. Now, this generation also has a lot of Aquarius energy, which is very futuristic, represents technology, represents the new ideas. So they are coming in with tons of new ideas. They're really interested in technology. And they're also going to be changing our belief systems. Because they're still young, again, we have to make friends with time, and these things evolve and make themselves known over time. So I think we're still going to have to wait until this generation passes their Saturn return here in a few years, like 5 to 10 years, but we're going to really start seeing what this new world is going to look like. It's going to look and feel totally different in 2026, 2027. So that's
Wow.
just like a little smidget of what's coming and what we're working with now.
Yeah, it's almost like this hopefulness of, the light at the end of the tunnel and needing to go through the darkness before the dawn.
Yes.
And really, like, I love how you're bringing that awareness to the commitment of time. Like, the time is going to pass anyways. We might as well stay committed to our path and know that like these cycles come through and know that like we are right on track, even if it feels as though we are in these darker places, because sometimes it is like the darkest before we get to
Yes.
the light,
The
and
dark before the dawn. You have to have both to know both.
yes, the polarities, like
Mhm.
I often think about like just the different laws of this universe and how special it is to be here, even though there's so much at play. And I've often heard too that like we're in like galactic wars, like that, and I am so open to
Mhm.
all of it. And yeah, like just I feel like I felt very much at ease just hearing you describe the astrology, because it sounds like and it feels like it's this template that we have, and it gives us these tools of like knowing what to expect while also validating who we are becoming, because
Mhm.
that's the stage of life, at least I feel that I'm in. I feel like I am becoming, and maybe I'll always feel that way, just in that feminine, in that flow, in that desire, and the wanting more, in the growth,
Mhm.
like I just don't think I'll ever feel stagnant ever again. I think for me personally, like going through grade school and just going through the schooling system and just how that is set up, that to me felt like a really defeating time in my life, because I didn't fit into the boxes. Again, back to the
Mhm.
fitting in, is like I did not fit into what they wanted me to know or what they wanted me to learn or what they had planned. It's like
Mhm.
this is the part I think that we're learning to collaborate with kids of like, well, what is it that you feel inspired by, and giving kids that space and even that chance of, I don't care. It's like
Mhm.
we've always had this like authority with like adults and children,
Yes.
and looking at that historically.
And what is coming to mind right now for me with this, both at the school level and once we get to be adults and go into the working world, is the heart is missing. And to be humans, to be effective, loving, joyful humans, we have to connect our heart to our brain. Our heart is actually our largest magnetic field. And so when it is hurting, the rest of you is hurting and the rest of your life is hurting. This is your magnet that pulls everything into you. Um, what I have found, I love asking the question why. I have been that person, that kid that asked why my whole life. And so once I found these systems of human design, astrology, and gene keys, it finally answered the questions for me of why I am the way I am. Once I started using these tools and working with how I am designed, I like to tell people, okay, you don't tell a cheetah you don't tell a cheetah that it is wrong for being a cheetah and for running fast. Same thing, you don't tell an elephant that it's wrong for being an elephant. And I'm not going to try and make the elephant be the cheetah. That just wouldn't work. And so these systems show us how we are naturally designed to work with the universe. And unfortunately, our schooling system and then our jobs don't allow us to naturally really be who we are. And that's what's crumbling right now with
Mhm.
Pluto, the big transformer. It's going through Capricorn, which is the systems, the big long-term systems. It's just bulldozing through and tearing it all down right now. And that's why it feels like total chaos. And it's going to come into Aquarius here in this next year. And so we're going to start to see the new futuristic things. But Aquarius also has to do with our nervous system. So we are all right now having to go through these ginormous upgrades of our nervous system. And for me, if we could start concentrating less on the content in school and more on teaching kids to tap into their heart, use their feelings as barometers of kind of like when you're bowling, the bumpers, like our emotions are our guideposts to say, oh, we're going a little too far that way. We need to bring ourselves back here.
Mhm.
And to get to know themselves. I really believe that if everyone on the planet was living as themselves, the natural flow and harmony of life would just happen so much more easily. It would happen naturally because the divine force, we would be accepting it all. It would do a lot of the work for us. That's when you start doing this work, life gets much easier. And these crazy synchronicities happen that are
Mhm.
totally unexpected. You don't do because you've let go and you've surrendered to the universe. You trust the universe has my back. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen for me and with me. Um, Man, our world would just look so different if we all let go a little more.
Yeah, again, like that illusion of safety that comes with this idea of control. Like as you were describing that, it made it click of like, oh, like the system was the illusion of
Yes.
safety with control. And now
Yes.
we're noticing that it's actually safe to trust. What? What does that
Yes.
even look like? And I love that because it's like we don't get to know what it looks like, but we get to know what it feels like. And even if feeling is new, like it's safe now. Like feeling is
Mhm.
safe now, generally. And of course, like taking care of our traumas and really taking those steps to heal is so crucial too, because we are worth what's on the other side of that. We get
Yes.
to have the fruits of our labor. We get to align with those really potent synchronicities that you're mentioning. And I know for me, they come through in angel numbers. I love communicating with my angels,
Mhm.
and it is that validation that you need for self, not even that you need, but just like that gentle pat on the back of like, I got you, you're held, you
Mhm.
know? And surrendering our trust and our safety into those kind of ways just
Mhm.
feels exciting. It gives me hope.
What are some of the methods you use with kids to help them feel safety?
Yes, I'm so glad that you asked. So, whenever a kid comes into play therapy, they are running the show. And what I mean by that is it's child centered. So, everything is child directed. And it's basically me having this opportunity to show up with the trust, the truth, the expression, the courage. I am their mirror. So I'm waited until I'm invited. I wait until I'm shown and I'm shared with, because that shows like, okay, I trust you. I'm ready. And every move that they make, everything that they share, their body language, the way they take up space, their voice, their actions, their behaviors, everything I get to reflect back to them of how they are in the world. They get to see how they matter. They get to see
Mhm.
how they impact the world around them. They get to see who they are very clearly without any filters, without any conditioning, without any other projections. It's
Mhm.
just a very, very clean time to slow down and have things amplified. And that can be uncomfortable, but it can also be really, really vulnerable. And so we kind of titrate back and forth depending on their comfort zone, their window of tolerance, what they're willing to sit with, be with. And then we get to like bring that awareness to the pattern that they're showing up with. Oh, I didn't realize this was a pattern. Like, I wonder how long this has been true. Do you even believe this? Or is this something that like somebody taught you? Or like, do you have to like behave this way or else,
Mm.
and we get to find out what the fears are based around and if they are real or if they just feel true. And it's really, really powerful because you get to know your edges very, very quickly.
Mhm.
You get to know what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with very, very quickly. Like, for example, yesterday, there's a basketball game that goes up to like 999 points. And I was being set up to feel as though I needed to be perfect to like compete, to play. So, my friend that I was playing with, I think he's 6, he was like running up the score, like boom, 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 boom. I got the top score. I'm the winner. Yeah. Okay, your turn. And so I got to express like, wow, this feels like a lot of pressure. I feel like I have to either be perfect or it's just not going to be worth it, and even like reflecting those feelings that come with, okay, like I rigged the game, I manipulated the system, I got to my high score, and like I still felt nervous. Like I still felt like, what does that even mean for me? I
Mhm.
felt good about winning, but it's like, was that even what I really wanted? Like we get to know these really deep edges of ourselves. And then I got to express along the way of like, I wasn't allowed to cheat because he made it so that the rules were different for him versus me. But then like I was just like, wow, like every turn I got, like my points got higher. Like I like improved every turn, but like the way I'm being set up to feel is I still failed. Like I still lost. I still didn't do well. But like, so I get to bring that awareness to like, well, I'm hearing that I failed. I'm hearing that I messed up. I'm hearing that I'm not enough. But like, I actually noticed like my points got higher and like my skills got refined when I practiced. And like, does that mean anything? Bringing that
Mhm.
voice to those other factors that may or may not be thought about or like included of like, wait, there's actually more evidence here. And if the goal even is winning, which by the way, who cares? But like, if that's what's important, right? Then we get to like we get to highlight those ways of like, wait a second, this isn't the whole story, even though the way our minds work is like black or white, win or lose, fail or succeed, and it's just like we get to dismantle all of that. And then by the end of like 45 minutes, like he was actually cheering for me
Mhm.
as we like balanced our perceptions of like both sides. Like he was actually cheering for me. He was like excited for my wins too,
Yeah.
you know? So just like it just
Imagine if that was in our school systems right now. Like,
right.
and think about as you were telling the beginning of
Mhm.
your story, think about how many of our world systems were built from that 6-year-old's story, from his perception. That is our world right now.
And we get to even unpack, oh my gosh, this isn't even you. This is just the pattern you are running. This is just the template you have like put on. This is just the shirt you're wearing today. This isn't you. This is
Yes.
just what you believe. It's not real. This isn't
Yes.
you. This is just how you're unconsciously choosing to express, like this
Yes.
dominant, this like really dominating, like, I'm the best. Yeah, like if I'm not the best, like who am I? But
Yeah.
really, it's like, what? Do we even believe that? Or is that like literally what we've been programmed by? Media,
Yes.
sports, whatever,
Yes.
So easy to take on the world when we're, how you keep saying, like we're figuring out who we are. We're
Yes.
developing. And
Yes.
that needs to take priority because everyone's different. Everyone has different perceptions and different ideas of what matters and how they show up in the world. And it's interesting too, like we never know like what people go home to. It's
Mhm.
easy to see on the outside, or it's easy to assume or judge, especially like being younger when you really want to make sense of the world around you, when like you have to like make those judgments to make sense of things, even if they're only in your head, you know?
Mhm.
It's interesting to know that, like, wait a minute, nothing is as it seems. And like, am I good with that? Am I okay with that?
Mhm.
Can I be curious to that? You know?
Mhm.
So it can show
Yes.
up in so many ways like that. And I think it is important to just have every kid be able to have the stage and lead their way and show their process, because trusting that they have their own answers, their own solutions,
Mhm.
we could really get to know each other quick. It doesn't have to take years.
Yes. And I love what you're describing in the work that I study in this lens. It's all it is a lens and a perception. I you can take on different perspectives, whether you come at it as an astrologer or as a coach or as a therapist. It's really all the same thing. As above, so below. Everything gets reflected, and I
Mm,
love the work that we are both doing, just in slightly different perspectives, is this whole enlightenment and consciousness movement that we hear talked about now. Um, at
mhm,
its core, what it is about is more awareness. Do you have more awareness of why you're doing what you're doing, who you are, what you really want, what is true for you? Where did those belief systems come from? And it doesn't matter what path you take to get there. You
mhm,
can go meditate, you can go do your yoga practice, you can do none of that and play basketball, play with your friends, reflect through your friends.
mhm.
What matters the most is that you are asking the questions and taking the time to do reflection in whatever way feels most in alignment for you.
Amazing. Yeah. And that presence and that precision and just that willingness to show up, like, am I willing to be me today? Like, I'm not going to hide anymore. Like, I'm worth being seen. I have something to share with the world. Like, I know I'm here for a reason. And ah, I love that. I would also love to hear about Gene Keys and just your take on how
Yeah.
that relates to astrology and how that relates to the world.
Yeah. So I'll just give the little rundown of the differences between astrology, human design, and gene keys. So, astrology has been around for thousands of years and it's been used in every culture around the world. Every culture has had kind of its own flavor, which essentially is tied to the mythologies of each place. So in the Chinese zodiac, we have all the animals, and in the Greek and Roman zodiac, we have the Greek gods and characters, but they all describe the same energies. So astrology shows us the moment that you were born, where the planets were in the sky, and you're essentially imprinted with those energies. And it shows your gifts, your abilities, your talents, the things that are more triggering about your personality.
Mhm.
I like to say there's nothing that's bad about anything in a chart. It may just be a little more challenging, which might actually be the challenge you have to work through to give your gift to the world. It provides the fire and the fuel for that gift to come through. So it's what you have to work with in life. And with astrology on the wheel, we have the 12 houses as well, which show what area of life that planet is activating. Those are going to be houses where you have a lot of planets, are going to be really important areas of life to you. So we use astrology to look at our life holistically. And this is another word, another big shift I'd like to see in education is when I was growing up, the key phrase was becoming a well-rounded individual. And it was like, what does that mean? What does it mean to be well-rounded? How does that help me? Um, I would love to see a transition to developing holistic individuals, making people whole again, as I have spent so many years now putting myself back together, essentially. So, astrology shows us our holistic being through all areas of life and can show us how we are evolving and interacting with these energies around us. Um, then there was a man, um, he had a Western name, but he is known as Ra Uru in the like late 80s, early 90s, who channeled through this new system, energetic system of looking at our being. And so I'd recommend to anyone just go and like Google human design chart and you'll see this funny person show up. He channeled through that we are 9 energy center beings. So instead of having 7 chakras, he channeled 9. And he took the astrology wheel, the I Ching, which is also very connected to our 64 DNA strands, which is really interesting. I'm getting more into that lately. And then the Kabbalah and the Hindu chakra system. And he put all these things together. And so we can use astrology to look at much more of our whole life, all the areas. Then we go deeper into our individual personality using human design. So we call them gates. There are 64 gates in all of our centers that shows how energy runs through our being, where we need to connect to the other parts of our energy that's missing. So that's where we find people that like have those other gates and channels and they connect. And it's like, then you get this holistic part. And this system also is based on a tribal structure, and it shows the different roles one would play in a tribe or a kingdom, like the king, the warrior, the mother, the gatherer, the hunter. It shows there's like a sales line, a money line, and so it really shows you, like, if you were thinking about yourself in a tribal structure, where do I naturally fit? Am I meant to be the salesperson and attract things to me? Am I meant to be in more of a supportive role? Am I meant to be the individual having all the grand ideas? I'm meant to be the visionary. So let me be that role. So it really shows your role in society. Then in the early 2000s, there was a man named Richard Rudd who had studied human design for a long, long time. And he channeled through this new system called Gene Keys, where he took the 64 human design gates. He turned them into, he calls them keys now, the 64 keys, which are essentially these 64 lessons of life. And he essentially did a deeper dive into each key. He described the shadow of the key, our shadow self, the gift that it teaches us and gives us. It's very practical in our life. And then the city, which is the higher state, the highest state of that energy, that frequency, that personality trait. And he put them into these, he just took a handful of them, put them into these 3 sequences. The first is our activation sequence. It's 4 that shows us if you work with each of these energies that are very natural to you, you're going to unlock your dharmic purpose, which is more of an essence, a feeling in your life. He put through the love sequence, which shows how you emotionally connect with people and relationships. And then the pearl, which is a handful of gates that show the gifts that are going to unravel themselves throughout your life. So I love that at the end, this sequence, and these sequences really show how to activate these things. He calls it the practice of contemplation, that if you contemplate each of the keys, it's going to unlock gifts and things in you didn't know were there. So I use all 3 systems, and for me, I use them in when a client comes to me, what questions do you have about yourself? What do you want to know? how deep do you want to go? We can go super deep with all this. It's up to you. And for me, I studied these systems over several years. And just like learning an instrument, I mean, I can use music and my journey becoming a musician, working in a symphony orchestra as a primary metaphor for life. You don't just get handed an instrument and are automatically able to play a Mozart concerto. You have to go through all the stepping stones and building blocks to get there. And that's how we work with these systems too. You don't just come and have one reading and learn everything about yourself. And it's not meant to be that way. They're meant to unfold little by little.
Wow. I was just envisioning you playing your instruments. I want to know what instruments you play.
Yeah, so I play the bassoon, which let's see,
Okay.
it's behind my chair. You can see the tip of it right here behind me. That
Yes.
is my primary instrument. It's what I do professionally. Growing up, I also played piano, upright bass, and a little bit of drums. So a little bit of everything, but I like low instruments. I like the bass tones. They make me feel very grounded.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, I was just envisioning, like, as you were describing the orchestra, just like you having this symphony of all pulling together all of the ways and all of the I just think about everything that goes into it, like the tempo, the beat, the rate, the speed, like the synchronicity, the
Yeah.
tone, everything,
That's that
so
is that is
expressive.
what it is. It's again, as above, so below. You can find reflections of everything in life. And you can what I've realized is that I am never going to stop asking questions. There's always going to be another question, another thing. And so my job is to enjoy where I am at in the journey, to soak it all in as I go.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so, so much for your time today. Where can listeners find you if they want to learn more and if they want to work together with you?
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm looking forward to doing this again, continuing this
Yes,
conversation.
yes.
Um, the best place to find me is on my Instagram. It is at KKASLE. That's my last name is Kasle, but it's spelled kind of funny with a K. And on there, you can find my link tree. I think it's linktr.ee/Kelly Castle. And I keep that up to date with all of my latest offerings, my booking pages. For your listeners in particular, I do a session called Get to Know Your Child for mothers. And I especially love working with moms who have younger kids, like between 10 to 12 months and like 6 years old. And I've had a lot of success working with moms, and we talk about, okay, what sort of environments should we set up for their kid based on their structure? What activities, how can you communicate with them more effectively? That's my background as a teacher working with these 11 to 18-year-olds. I know all about watching a teenager grow up and communicating with teenagers and with kids. So I love being able to bring in that knowledge and wisdom from that part of my life into this work as well.
And there's nothing like that felt sense and that lived experience. So that is
Yes.
so valuable.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I can't wait for the next one. And thank you again so much for joining us. I wish you
Yes.
well and have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
Bye.